Perfect. We are now live. I apologize for our delay. We will call our special session to order. Randy, can you take, Randy or Becky, can you take attendance or roll call, please?
I'll do the roll call.
There you go.
President Bill DeSmet.
Here.
Vice President Carrie Nicholson.
Here.
Secretary Lisa Middleton.
Here.
Treasurer Larry Williams.
Here.
Trustee Amanda Lankard.
Here.
Trustee Shauna Gamble.
Here.
And Trustee Richard Lindsay.
Here.
Okay, thank you. We will observe our customary moment of silence. Thank you. Let's see. Richard, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Let me find my mute button. Yes.
There we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the
of
United States
of America.
and to the
To the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one nation
One nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 2, approval of the agenda. May I receive a motion to approve the agenda?
I move for approval.
Okay, I think Richard and then Lisa. Any discussion? Okay, we'll start with Richard.
Yes.
Shauna,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Bill. Yes. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to number 3, public comment. Individuals who wish to address the board on agenda items were asked to complete a form before 6 p.m. today. Then they would have been sent a link. And then we will open it up now. Derek, do you have any? Well, actually, is public comment. We ask public comments be kept to 3 minutes. We will take note of any questions. The answers may come through Dr. Davis's presentation, or will be answered through the Q&A that Dr. Davis has been doing on a weekly basis. So any public comment, Derek?
We have several members that I sent the email to.
Okay. So if you want to pick the first one, unmute them and have them identify themselves, that would be great.
Okay. Maybe you like to start with Andrea.
Hi,
Hello.
thank you. Hi. First of all, I want to say thank you for the great communication that's going on, especially through the Facebook page. That's really appreciated. I just had a question about now that the online learning, it looks like will probably be Marshall Public School teachers. I know Dr. Davis mentioned that there were some training opportunities through the summer. It's my understanding that these were voluntary for teachers. So my question is, will it only be the teachers that were trained this summer teaching the online, the virtual school? And if not, what type of training will be offered to teachers that did not attend the training that will be teaching virtually? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Derek, can you go to our next public comment, please?
Stacy.
I have a comment on something similar. I'm really frustrated. In early July, approximately 15% of families said that they wanted a virtual only option. I would argue that that number has increased since that time, because we've had a lot of news about increased cases. The situation has gotten worse, quite frankly. The virtual plan should be the easy part of the return to learn plan. That wasn't a question. You don't have to worry about what safety protocols, what phase we're in. So why are you dropping your previous plan without any apparent visible alternative? The full description of the virtual plan on the webpage, and I quote, "Students have the option to enroll in an MPS virtual only program designed and taught by MPS teachers. This program will include live digital instructions with MPS teachers and students and is taught following all MPS curriculum guidance documents." That is not a plan. That is a mission statement. Given that numerous parents have asked for details in the public questions, including myself, and none have actually been provided, I can only assume that there is no actual plan or details, and the decision to drop the third party was provided based on political motivations and without regard to the well-being of our students. I understand that the teachers union has protested the use of a non-union third-party provider, and 2 board members last week echoed those concerns. We are in the midst of a pandemic. A decision made in the best interest of our students to use a third-party provider is not going to set a precedent for replacing our teachers under normal circumstances and should not be used as an excuse to underserve our children. To be clear, I have no objection to a virtual-only option taught by MPS teachers, but there needs to actually be a plan to provide reasonable quality education to all MPS students, not just the people showing up to class. Teachers simultaneously instructing in-person and online students is not a viable option. Teachers have to have time dedicated to virtual-only students to both design, create, and deliver the virtual lessons and to interact with the virtual students. And a virtual-only option is not live streaming an in-person class. That leaves the virtual students completely out of the picture. Does MPS really have the personnel resources to teach socially distanced classes? That means smaller class sizes and dedicated virtual classes? I really doubt it. How can the board vote for a plan with no details? How can parents choose a plan without details? Parents have options and need those details now, not a week from now, if you want our children to remain
Can I ask you to
enrolled at
wrap up your
MPS.
comments, please? Sorry.
Yes. Many of us are not choosing between a virtual MPS virtual and MPS in person. We're choosing between MPS virtual and an established virtual provider.
Thank you. Derek, we'll go to the next public comment, please.
Eleanor?
Oh dear, no comment. Sorry.
Thank you. Anyone else, Derek?
Looks like Kelly. Okay, I guess we'll move on to Alicia Loveberry. Alicia, go ahead.
I think she's unmuted, correct? Yep.
Yep.
Ms. Loveberry, do you have any comments for the board?
And we also have Erica Ishin.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right.
Who's?
This would be Erica.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not on video, correct?
No.
That's correct.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I didn't have my notes here, but I just wanted to add that I'm in support also of starting out virtually. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
This would be Erica.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not on video, correct?
I'm not sure where the echo is coming from, but it sounds like there's a delay someplace.
Yeah. I just wanted to add. Should I wait?
Somebody must have YouTube live streaming, it sounds like.
Erica, are you live streaming your YouTube right now?
Yes. Okay.
You might want to turn it down.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure where the echo is coming from, but it sounds like.
Is this any better? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that better?
Yep. We're not hearing in the background right now.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Anyways, I just wanted to say that I'm in support also of starting school off virtually. It's not, a large part of it is because of the safety, obviously the safety issues. But I was in a meeting at school today at the middle school, and we were just trying to figure out the logistics of following safety protocols and then how are we going to be supporting and teaching our kids in person and online, and then our virtual students, and being able to do that all well and effectively, and learning all of the technology, getting all the new programs, getting our computers in the amount of time that we have, which we all know is not a lot of time to be able to pull this off with a lot of confidence that we're going to do it really well. And I just kind of feel like if we really nail down the virtual part, the online component, that we could have like just an easier transition from really just focusing on getting the technology done well. And then it'll be a smoother transition once we start kind of phasing back into the classroom. And the only other thing I wanted to say is that, if we do end up meeting in person, I really like the fact that we have changed our schedule to follow the high school schedule, because we simply just don't have enough room in our middle school classrooms to be able to teach safely. So anyway, sorry about all of the other stuff, the technical difficulties. I just wanted to give you my my 2 cents. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Derek, let's see if Ms. Loveberry is available now, and then if not, we can move forward.
Alicia, you want to go ahead and there we go.
Yeah. You can hear me okay?
We can right now, yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so kind of back on what Christy was talking about. I feel more confident in the school year, maybe lane person start for a variety of reasons. One being, there's concerns about what if someone lives with an older individual may have risk. Could be a concern. Another concern is just the logistics, everything. We don't know what the calls are in classroom. What does moving in the hallway look like? What is for cleaning and wiping down? We don't know any of that. We're weeks away. We haven't been able to walk through any of those. So what the day is actually like. I think that a lot of us have a good handle because of our experience here with online teaching. And so I think that seems to me, in my opinion, seems a safer start. It seems a very proactive start that would kind of help as a district. We are going to move through the next phase of actually getting students into the classroom. Because I hate to have it just be hurried and rushed, and that some points really should have addressed at the start. Just think from a safety standpoint and logistics point, starting in person makes more sense. Doing that later and starting out the school year virtually seems to make the most sense. So that was those are my comments, and thank you for allowing me this time.
Thank you. Derek, any other public comment?
We also have Kelly, Lisa, and Leslie. So Lisa, you want to go next? Uh,
I
Kelly?
think if you're referring to Lisa, it's Lisa Middleton. She's calling in on her phone.
Oh, okay. All right. Then we also have Kelly, and that would be it.
I'm not speaking, Derek.
Okay.
All right. Bill, are we done?
Sorry, I was on mute. I apologize. I've been doing pretty good with that. So I think we are set on public comment. We're going to move to board topic A, preliminary.
Bill, there's one more. Eleanor Marsh says she's ready to speak now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sorry, I apologize. I was just jumping on earlier. I just wanted to jump in as an employee who's been taking part in the large task force meetings. And I personally have always supported a K through 12, 100% virtual comeback simply for the stress on safety and health of our students and of our teachers. But I really applaud Dr. Davis and the rest of our administration for being very flexible in listening to the comments and suggestions and challenges and difficulties and wringing of hands that have come along with this. And I was so pleased to see the shift to the middle school going 2 days on, 3 days off with cohorts. Because what could have happened is when they realized there wasn't enough space at the middle school to do the social distancing that is strongly recommended, they could have simply said, well, we'll just social distance as much as we can and stay with the previous plan. And so Dr. Davis has said several times that the health and safety of the students and staff are at the forefront of his concerns.
Eleanor?
We may have lost you, Eleanor. Are you there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No problem.
Anyway, the last part was just that we're going K through 12 with masks also speaks to the concern about the safety of our staff and of our students. And lastly, that we're following all of the strongly recommended recommendations rather than only the required ones. I just think that the central administrative staff has done a really good job of pivoting when issues have come up, and I'm just grateful for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I will stay off of mute and we will close public comment. We will move to board topic A, preliminary return to learning plan. We'll turn it over to Randy, let him speak. One of the pieces I think would be beneficial is if we let Randy go through his presentation, and then I'll make sure every board member has an opportunity to address any questions for Randy and have time to go through those with him. So Randy, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. In a second, I'm going to play that YouTube just simply because it gives you the more specifics all the way through the plan. It's about a 2.5 minute YouTube if you haven't seen it already. Hopefully Kelly will be able to pull that up when I give her the cue. But let me start out by saying that this has been an incredible process of listening to better understand people's perspectives, trying to keep us aligned with our 3 primary objectives that we stated earlier. One was, first and foremost, was to keep our students, staff, and teachers safe upon our return to school. Secondly, is to provide a high quality level of education that we're accustomed to providing in Marshall Public Schools with our certified and highly qualified teachers. And then third is to support our students and our organization with social emotional learning and also mental health support services. Those things are embedded in our plan, and while there's more detail that has to happen at the building level, we're fashioning what we think is a pretty strong model that we're bringing to you. This is called our Better Together plan, highly qualified teachers. And then third is to support our students and our listening to YouTube on my, Okay. The Better Together plan essentially has two choices when you think about it. Regards to the phases we're in, well, there are, okay, let me go back. There are two choices, two plans that we have. The first one is essentially some degree of in-person instruction. Now that does vary for our primary grades, K through 5. And it's different in that model for a 4-1 model versus our secondary grades, which is 6 through 12, which now equates to a 2-3 model. Marshall Opportunity High School and Michigan Youth Challenge Academy are both on the 4-1 model because they have enough space and they have enough coordination with the curriculum and so forth. It's already established that they're able to maintain social distancing and so forth. So there's basically one model of in-person and variations of that model. And then there's the remote only. And the remote only, you've heard from folks in the community also, that we were looking at a virtual only third party and that was challenged. Some comments were made in public comment that I believe negatively impacted the opportunities for us to move forward. We certainly do have 2 board members that position themselves to say no, they don't support it. And so even though it's a prohibited subject to bargaining according to our legal counsel, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole if the majority of folks think that we need to go forward with remote or virtual, driven by, designed, and implemented and provided by our teachers. And there's a varying level of degree of comfort with that, but with our teachers, but primarily that's the model that we are putting forth. So in phases 1 through 3, or at a time when there's a executive order that may come out to say, you know what, even though we're in phase 4, it looks like community spread is increasing. So so the governor's going to decree an executive order that we all go to remote only. In phases 1 through 3, in that circumstance, we are remote only. Everyone's remote only. We're going to continue to bring forward our virtual learning, the difference between, and you've seen the document that outlines that very well, the difference between distance learning in March and what we expect to provide in the fall. There is going to be more rigor. The expectation of attendance will be taken. It is required to participate. There will be assessment and grading and homework and those types of things. So that looks like, okay, Kelly, you're jumping in, but that's okay. Let me finish the narrative. So that looks like it's pretty well set for us by the return to school roadmap. And then under phases 4 and 5 is the first time we have the opportunity to consider in-person instruction. And I remind you, in fact, we had 6 more people log on to our parent survey. So we now have, I believe it's 56% of our families represented. And of that 56% of our families surveyed, 73% now are saying that they want some form of in-person instruction. We have to consider that and consider that strongly as a board and as an organization, that if we have that kind of response of expectation, we need to find a way to deliver that. And then of course, in phase 5, we plan to move our secondary grade levels from 2-3 model to a 4-1 model, like the rest of the district. And then when the Calhoun County Public Health Department lets us know that we're continuing to decrease the risk and that we're in really good shape, we're gonna see how we can segue into, depending on the timing of the school year, into 5 days a week, all day long, all students on hand. And then of course 6 is going to be the same thing, and At that point, we'll be relaxing some of the expectations, hopefully not the lifestyle. So what we're hoping is through the process of all of these phases, that our kids and our parents and the community and so forth continue to practice good hygiene, good practices around mitigating risks in regards to social distancing, not hanging in large groups or going to large group activities and using masks when they can't social distance. And then, so saying that, I want to say that the concern over wanting to go to have the whole district stay in a remote right now, that decision may be taken out of our hands if it happens by the county health department or the governor's office. On the other hand, it's in the hands of every single individual that we serve. It's in the hands of the family that wants to send their kids to in person and wish we could do it 5 days a week. And I've got a lot of emails on that. Or it's somebody that says, I am so thankful that you're only doing 2 days a week for my secondary student. That gives them a chance to do 3 days remote. That works for us. Or the elementary student or parent that says, I think 4 days a week and 1 remote works. Some may say that may be too much. But at any rate, that's a choice to go in person that every single family has to make. And then the choice to go remote is in the hands of every single family we serve. So if you break it down after we look at the details, that's essentially what we're talking about. We're talking about choice, and we're talking about putting it in the hands of parents, and we're talking about trying to, at the same time, keeping our staff and our teachers safe and our students safe in the process. With that, I want to go to this video. Kelly, can you go to the video?
I'll start it whenever you're ready, sir.
Yeah, please. This is Anthony Barroso oversinking the materials, by the way. Thank you, Anthony.
In phases 1 through 3, the Michigan Safe Schools Roadmap calls for all instruction to occur remotely. Students will be taught by MPS teachers virtually using Google Classrooms as a platform. All assignments and assessments are required and graded. In phase 4, K through 5th grade students will attend Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in person, and Wednesday will be remote learning, MMS and MHS hybrid. Guaranteed 2 days in person by cohort A and B. Monday, Tuesday for A, Thursday, Friday for B, and 3 days per week will be remote learning. When our region moves into phase 5, MMS and MHS will move to 4 days of in-person, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, at the nearest marking period break, and Wednesday will remain a remote learning day. 9 through 12th grade, MOHS and MYCA. Students attend Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in person, and Wednesday will be remote learning. Students K through 12 with an IEP or 504 may attend in person up to 4 days per week in any building, and Wednesday will be remote learning when indicated by a student's personal education plans. Later in phase 5, based on county health data, students attend in-person learning 100% of the time. Moderate safety protocols are followed in phase 5, and lower safety protocols are followed in phase 6. Facial coverings should be worn by students and staff when not socially distant in phase 5. No facial coverings are required in phase 6. Students have the option to enroll in an MPS virtual-only program designed and taught by MPS teachers. This program will include live digital interactions with MPS teachers and students, and is taught following all MPS curriculum guidance documents. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you back in school soon.
Thank you. So with that, and I'm almost done with the presentation, open up for questions. I also sent you, and I know you haven't had the chance to read it in its entirety, but I sent you the draft as of 8/4/2020 of our COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. This is a plan that's required for us to have you approve on the 10th of August so that it can be submitted to our ISD on the 17th of August, who will then forward after approval up to Michigan Department of Ed, who will approve the final go ahead for us to go into operations for the school year 2021. I want to highlight a couple things in this plan. We're making this available also to any of our constituents that want to review the plan and get a little bit more details behind it. I think it's important to know that we've been as quick off the gun as we possibly can in regards to providing this material out to the public and to you. In the first section, it talks about what are our policies and procedures that the district will follow in the region in which the district is located is in phase 1, 2, 3 of the Michigan Safe Start Plan. I want you to know that we're in the Kalamazoo region. That represents, I believe, 6 counties, and we're one of them. Out of the counties in Kalamazoo region, we are doing really well as a Calhoun County. If you look at my start map and review the last 30 days, you're going to find that we primarily have been under 3% positive cases on a daily average. That's a long time. It's actually for longer than that, but it's a long time. And it's great to see that. We have gone above 40 per million. Depending on what the testing and so forth has gone on, but it's not an indication of a community spread. And that was only on a couple blips during, I don't know, maybe 17 days ago. And at this juncture, we've been under 40 per million for quite some time. So Calhoun County is doing well, knock on wood. These are indicators that we look at and a number of other things that the Calhoun County Health Department looks at to verify that we're not having a community spread. Carrie, you made a really good comment. I'm just going to mention it and continue the presentation so you don't have to go back into it. But the fact that if in Calhoun County and Dr. Johnson tests all of his students coming into Albion College in one fell swoop, and they're from all around the country and then some, those positives come into our Calhoun County as positives in our county. It could show a real big spike, maybe, or it could have an impact. And if it does, it doesn't mean that we're going down a community spread. It just simply means there was an isolation and there was a testing of those results, and those results are impacting our overall trend line. That is the Calhoun County Health Department's job, to take a look at that information that comes in the data every 7 days. And every 7 days we consult with the health department. Yesterday morning, we had another conversation with them as far as superintendents. And he informs us of how he's investigating those kind of different trends and whether or not it's an indication that we're at risk. We still have to follow what Kalamazoo County region is indicated. And so if we have continued uptick in St. Joe County or Cass County or Van Buren County, those things do impact our region. And we have to live with whatever those decisions are in Kalamazoo, in the Kalamazoo region, even though our county is low and continues to do a good, at least have good results in regards to that. So with that, phase 3 in section A, or phase 1 through 3 in section A, it's pretty much dictated to us how we operate. We're just confirming that that we're giving Chromebooks out to every single student, K-12, that we're providing hotspots. Richard, with our recent communication, we're certainly in the position of wanting to support our local 2 libraries, public libraries in Albion and Marshall, to get continued funding to get even more hotspots available for lending. And we'll continue to look at that option as well, internal to the organization, based on grant funding that we have had offered to us and some things that we can consider. So we want to do everything we can to bring the materials into the hands of our students, to make sure that there's tutorials to parents on how to engage in Google Classroom, to make sure there's tutorials for kids, to make sure that they're as equipped as possible to be able to move forward in a remote only and virtual environment. So the next, within that same section of A, we also talked about our phase 4 and 5 summary. You'll see in that summary a little bit more detail, things like teachers and staff under virtual only have to document weekly contact with all remote and virtual students through mentoring logs. And those have to be submitted at least for the 4th Wednesday count and then some. So there's a full accountability of students logging on, and that they're required to do the work, and then they're getting graded and those types of things. There's a number of statements in there about our different trainings that we're providing. Yes, we've had teachers select in to the training. I think Chad mentioned, well, I don't want to quote him. Chad, are you on? Chad quoted over 70, I believe, teachers that partook in the Google training with stipend. We're still making that available and open for people. Right now, the MTA and the central administration is talking about trainings that could happen, actually even more training before the school year starts. We'll see how that goes, but we're certainly willing to discuss how we can keep on getting good training in the hands of our teachers and get them best prepared. Section B is the policies and procedures that the district will follow in the region if the region is in phase 4 of the Michigan State START plan. And it talks about face coverings. So we specify in face coverings that we're going to do all requirements of face coverings, but we're also extending that to expect that all children, whether primary grades or secondary grades, are wearing their mask at all times in the building. That provides us more flexibility when we talk about social distancing and we talk about special subject teachers coming in and out of the classroom and those types of things. And it's good, healthy experience. We've learned a lot from Michelle Morgan and her staff over at our early childhood center, Shamrock. These kids can learn on keeping their mask on during the day, keeping their mask on in the building and outside in the playground when it's necessary and they can't social distance. And these are our littlest binkies. So I think we can probably be successful. As one of our teachers said, Dr. Davis, if you just require it, we'll make sure the kids understand why they're doing it and how it's helping me and them, and we'll create a family and an environment where that's supported. We also talk about in that section hygiene, the expectations of washing hands, sanitizer before you walk in the classroom and when you leave the classroom, wiping down your surface areas, et cetera, et cetera. Interesting to note that one of the things is we're going to have drills or notifications that it's time to wash your hands. And we're going to have multiple of those throughout the day so that it gets everybody in the routine of, yeah, I've been sitting here at the desk working and it's time to get up and get some hand sanitizer and wash our hands. There's other things that are on that list. So you'll see that detail that's in the report. Another one is cleaning, and that was asked about how are we going to be doing cleaning and those types of things. And we're working with high tech. We got to remember that when you're in phase 4, which is probably the most restrictive phase on requirements and protocols for health and safety for doing in person, that phase 4 only lasts as long as phase 4 lasts, right? So it could be short, could be long, but we're working on every day that students are in the classroom. We're mitigating by having the students clean their areas, having the teachers clean their room, having high tech come in at the end of the day, and then starting the next day with the same group of students. We do the same thing over again. High tech comes in at the end of the day. And then on Wednesday, when all the teachers and students are out of the building, We then go into a deeper sanitizing clean and opening all the windows and airing out the building. And then the next group, A, B, comes in, or in elementary, the same kids come back and they do those 2 days over again with the same routines, the same cleaning that goes on with high tech at night. And then we have the weekend crew come in and they continue to do the sanitizing, et cetera. So the cleaning is real robust. There are details that we have to add to it. You know, if you ask me, well, you know, are we going to do the HEP filters? Yes, we're going to. I don't know if it's HEP 90 or HEP 110 or whatever it is, but we are going to do the larger filters. Are air handling units able to bring in fresh air? Yes, they can. We've talked with King Scott about those issues. As long as we clean those out, keep them clean, have the filters changed on a regular basis, all that. Another item 4 is athletics, and you've seen some of the communication from Dan Coddens on athletics. We're following MHSAA rules, and it's pretty involved. And so we've listed some of those down for this report as well. The 6th area is screening, health screening. We do have a health screen that's automated through Michigan Department of Ed that we're adopting for all staff, myself included, anybody that works for the organization that comes in our buildings. Every morning before they come to work, they have to fill this survey out. It logs that they've done that, and if they haven't done that, then our administrators have to follow up on the individuals that skipped it. In that, it talks about symptomology and those types of things as well. For our students, and one of the things I'm encouraging all of our employees to do is, if you don't have the wherewithal, go out and get it and get a temperature gauge and check your temperature every day. I'd love it if you had the opportunity to check your oxygen levels, because that's an impact, a symptomology impact on COVID. I even go a little further, but I just think it's smart to do. When we get to testing about students, we want and we will provide information for parents and tutorials on how they should check their student for symptomology, inclusive, I hope, of taking their temperature when they're relaxed and they're still in their home, rather than when they're outside running around in the elements. It's a more truer indication. And if their child is at 100.3 or above, then the recommendation is to keep them home. And there's protocols to follow on unaided by medication to allow, they get now 24 hours for that fever, that temperature to go down to normal. The other things coming out of our health committee is temperature doesn't denote a fever. It has to be higher temp, and it's got to be associated also with some symptomology. So we're going to educate our parents on that. We have to rely on our parents to be truthful about that. Be partners with us in this process. We have to rely on our staff to do the same. Once the students and staff and everybody's in the buildings and we're operating within person, we're going to train our staff about what to look for in symptomology. And if we notice that a child complains that they're feeling this way, or an adult says the same thing, they immediately have to be referred down to the nurse's station into a quarantine area until that can be mitigated. And there's a whole list of examples that goes through that process, and that's all driven by the health department. There's a really cool frequently asked question document that's being created by our subcommittee on health and wellness. And some of our physicians that are also parents in our district are there, and they're helping to kind of walk through that as well. The 7th area is busing and student transportation. It gives you the whole rundown about what we can and can't do. And it gives parents exactly what they need to know about busing. And then this final section is on section 5, or what happens in phase 5 of the state plan. And we took that opportunity to say, please refer back to section A, but also to say that in phase 5, the district will work with county health officials to eventually move to 100% in-person instruction when it's safe to do so. Then we go through and we indicate a whole litany of things that are pretty much a hodgepodge, but it's all about safety practices in the building. And it goes on for a couple pages. We've looked at some other, Chad's looked at a couple other posted COVID-19 preparedness response plans, and we think ours is much more comprehensive. But the reason why we did that is because we think the COVID-19 preparedness and response plan not only needs to be that way for our county to look at and also for the state to review and approve, but for you to approve and know that most all those answers of questions that are coming up are in that document. And also parents need to know that it's comprehensive. Staff need to know it's comprehensive. So we're going to be putting that out. We've already let it out for people as a draft. We'll tweak that all the way through next week until we get finally to your board. So please take the time to read that, ask me any questions that you have about that, and we'll go from there. Other than that, just a shout out to Kelly. That YouTube video was passed on to the Geln Learning Essential group at the state level because they wanted to see it for themselves, and people are really impressed with the communication styles that are going out. I can't claim that. I do the narrative and I do the critique, and I catch things that go on that should be maybe put in that weren't put in. But largely the artwork and the creativity and the innovation that's going on is coming from Kelly and the committee and Chad, and just a big shout out on the great job that they're doing. That ends my presentation. I'm going to open it up for any questions or concerns you still may have. Please chime in.
So Randy, just let me make sure I start with something. Just as clarification, the plan that you just referred to is what's going to come in front of us next Monday. And that also covers the return to school plan, is the model that you've presented to us already. Yep. Okay.
Models are incorporated into that. Yeah.
Yep. So it's not going to be a vote on the model and a vote on that. It's all incorporated into one piece. It's on the agenda for next week, on the preliminary agenda for next week.
That's true. And I would really appreciate, though, because, you know, we're running out of time, and you heard that from one or two of our public comments. Yeah, we're running out of time. We're not given a lot of time, and every district is in this boat, and we're trying to move forward as quick as we can. I would like to have some reasonable assurances that you are comfortable with the model that we're moving forward, because we have to begin to start at the building level with the principals and system principals and their staff to work through the devil in the detail of how does this feel for us? How does this work on a daily basis? What are the expectations? Chad is really busy developing all the trainings that need to be available. We're working with the MTA to try to get agreements on how that might work earlier than just on the 24th and 25th of August, possibly trying to fit 3 more days of training in there. I'm considering a couple options on that. But we need to know that you have faith behind this model that we're moving forward with, so that we can start jumping in and moving forward. So that's what I guess in the long run, that's what I'm asking you is a confidence vote that you're good with the direction that we're going, and that we seem to be heading in the right way.
Dr. Davis, I would like more information on the virtual only option, because I do think that's the part that I feel least comfortable about. I don't feel like we really have a plan. And when I hear teachers talk, it sounds like there's a lot going on. There's a lot of anxiety. There's just a lot of things that need to be put together. And I feel like that's another thing that they have to do, is then teach the virtual only students. And I don't know how that's going to work without compromising the in-person learning. Can you give us a better idea, like when teachers asked to teach the virtual only too, what was their plan on how that would be accomplished and what that would look like? Like what did they tell you? What kind of information did they give you about how they thought they would accomplish that?
Well, I don't have a lot of planning from the MPA, who brought that challenge back about virtual only with third party. I can tell you that, number one, our teachers have gone through that. Granted, it was very cursory and very general in March, but all of them had to work together on developing shared common instruction, lesson plans that could be delivered both in packet and electronically. What we're kicking up a notch is making sure that everybody has experience in training through Google Classroom or Google Suite that they understand primarily how to work with documents on the Google Drive, the Google Classroom, to be able to upload their lesson plans, their assignments, to be able to work with students on Google Meet, to be able to have real-time conversations with their class, those types of things. And we're working on how does that fit within their schedule. There's a whole lot of details behind that, but we had a leg up on diving in head first on that in March. Now it's refining it and getting the skill sets. Most everybody's been introduced to Google, have had to operate on Google. Now it's a matter of refining their skill set to be able to do it with fidelity and a lot more intentionality. I believe they're up to the task. I know that there's disagreement among the teachers on whether they should have gone that way or not. And the bottom line is we've accepted that feedback on not going virtual only with a third party, and simply going with teachers, our own teachers that we know are certified and highly qualified and able to do the job. And that's what we'll do.
So I'm not so much worried that they won't be able to teach virtually, because on Wednesdays, essentially, that's what everybody is doing, is virtual. I'm just worried that they won't be able to really manage virtual and in person. So like Spanish class, you need a lot of language, right? And a lot of interaction. And how would that work if the Spanish teacher is teaching virtual students at those same times they're teaching the person in person? But
Yes.
if they aren't, if they're teaching them at separate times, then, you know, are they going to be working longer? You know, are they going to lose planning time?
I get your point. So there are a lot of scenarios that people are talking through with the MTA and us. Our administrators are looking at this and bringing me ideas about how a particular type of class it isn't conducive to simply seeing the lesson plan, understanding what the work needs to be, et cetera, and then this is how you solve problems. They're talking about possibly having dedicated hour for virtual, those types of things. If you look in the response plan, preparedness and response plan, Carrie, in one section it talks about our virtual only, and it talks about the fact that that we will be providing remote learning asynchronous. So it's not going to be live streaming in the classroom at the same time that they're teaching the class. They're going to have to upload their work. The teachers have to upload their work, their lesson plans, so forth, onto Google Classroom. And then they're going to have an engagement with the students that are in the remote area to be able to talk through what that lesson looks like and those types of things. How that fits, those details have not been worked out yet. We're still working furiously on it. That's why we need your head nod that, okay, got it, understand what's in the model. We need to move forward and make that happen. And if not, we need to have time enough to be able to say, hold the phone, this is not going to be successful. And that's what I'm asking you to do tonight, is let me move forward with this model so we can get these kind of things tied down. There's a lot of work to be done on that, and people have to be on the same page to be able to know if it's going to work or not. We need to know what we're looking at and what the plan is. And once we know that, I think we can move forward with pretty quick pace. Right now, our administrators have just come back to work. All of them are back on duty as of the first week of August. And so we're having we'll be able to have much more planning and coordination than we've had during the virtual time in July.
So just thinking about language again. So I can't remember a time frame, but when they were switching the scheduling at the middle school, it was offered that students could take Spanish in advisory, which sounded like that would be a third-party online option. And so it seemed like we were willing to do it in some cases. And I feel like there are probably some classes that will fit better with virtual taught by your teachers, but language in particular, I don't see how you can learn as well if it's just watching a video of the Spanish teacher and what they did earlier. And I don't see how the teachers would have the time to then have like 40 minutes or so of conversational with all of those students? Is there a possibility of having some classes offered by a third party that may be better fit that way and harder to do remotely by our teachers?
That's a possibility. We've done that before for different reasons. Like I said, the company that we brought to you guys is a company we've been working with for some time. So I can't say yes right now, Carrie, in a board meeting publicly to say, yep, I'm all for it. I can say it's a valid question. It's a valid idea. It's something that I know that my administration and teachers will bring forward to me. Anything else?
Next, who wants to go next from the board? Richard?
Yeah, I can make a couple comments. First of all, I'm really appreciative of what Kelly's done on Facebook. Communication has been excellent in the last few days, last couple weeks that she's been running that. To have her on there, and I think it's probably Becky also on there in real time answering questions. Facebook and social media is an odd beast sometimes to try to deal with, and Kelly is very adept at answering those questions. As much appreciated. I guess second point is I think the time is going to run short, and I want to ask the question again. And Randy, it sounds like maybe you're already having these discussions or going to have these discussions with the union, but to have the teachers come back and allow them a week with some specific training, maybe 2 weeks with some specific training, I think would help address some of the concerns that people have about the ability and the skill of the teachers, not to teach their chosen subject, but to do it in an online forum. And I guess I would support if you can come back next Monday and talk about having a little bit more time, and maybe it's to start a week earlier. I don't really care where the time comes from, but to have more time, that would incline me to support the plan. The third thing is we've had a lot of discussion about the survey of parents, and I'm trying to think of a proper analogy, and it's kind of escaping me, but people often want things that aren't necessarily good for other people. And part of what I'm focused on entirely in my mind is not that what the parents want necessarily, but the safety of the children is paramount. And second only to that is the safety of the teachers and administrators. I have some confidence in talking with the health officer, some idea of what he's thinking. We are in a situation where, as he pointed out to me, when I get in the car every day, I take a risk. When I walk down the sidewalk, I take a risk that I'm going to trip and fall. We are in a very minimal risk area. We're lumped in with Kalamazoo, which has a larger risk than we do. So we're lumped into a larger area, but he is watching very carefully the numbers in Calhoun County. One of the things that I asked Randy today, and I would ask this question again, is, can we have an agreed upon level with the union and with the teachers so that they feel comfortable? I mean, it feels low risk. I'm not going to be sitting in a class with 15 first graders that are sneezing on me. So it's easier for me to say, sitting when I can't even meet in person with the other board members, to say it is safe. But it feels like we need to reach some common ground on what's safe and when it isn't safe. And something like that would help me to also vote yes on this next week. So those are my comments. I may have some more. My dog started barking. I'm going to go on mute here.
All right, Richard, if you can hear me over your dog, we do have those benchmarks that Eric is operating from the health department. That was actually created in support of a couple superintendents working with their unions to try to come up with just what you talked about. What are those benchmarks, and what's the threshold, and what are the other issues that come up that mitigate whether or not that truly is an indication of a community spread or not? So that's already there. It's already set. I'm real excited about it being done that way because it gives us really strong, personalized guidance from the health department on really tough decisions that districts have to make in regards to this. So I applaud Eric and his staff over at the health department for the work they did on that.
Randy, I'll just add in real quick, sorry. I've had the ability to sit in on the JOCs with the health department, and I will give kudos to Calhoun County. They've been on the forefront and on top of this since March, and doing meetings and having all the players in the county sitting at the same table, working day to day, looking at the numbers, receiving reports from the health department, everything. So kudos to them, and I'm happy to hear Randy say that he's working closely with Eric, because he's been great throughout this whole thing. Sorry, Carrie, I'll let you go ahead.
Oh, I was just want to clarify, that's the benchmark of 40 daily cases on average. Was it per 100,000 and less than 3%? Was that
40 cases per million residents?
per million? Okay.
And then it's 4% of daily average of new cases over a 7-day period of time.
4% of test positive. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Now, I have got to give you guys some caution on this, because we're publicly putting that out there, and what people aren't going to hear, they need to hear. And that is, once we hit those thresholds, that doesn't in and of itself say that we're in a community spread. It only simply gives a red flag for Eric and his people at the health department to start their investigation on why are our numbers going up above that threshold. And is it a unique circumstance of testing? Is it just a blip along the way and we go quickly back down within the next 7 days or 14 days? We're no longer hitting that peak. I mean, all of those questions need to be made. So because you and I read it as, oh, we're at 42 cases per million and we're at 3.5%, we must be in a community spread. That's not accurate. He needs to, and the health department needs to come back and say, this actually does have some teeth to it. We may find ourselves in a community spread, or he can come back and say, this is fully explained away and we don't have anything to worry about. We're going to monitor this for another 7 to 14 days and see where we go. So I just caution people not to jump to conclusions just simply because of metrics.
Okay, because it is going to be the health department that will be telling us, and there won't be any pushback from us if they say, hey, we think there's a concern about community spread and we're advising you to move to remote only, right?
Mary, I'm not the kind of doctor that can do any good. I'm a doctor in education, not medicine.
Okay, yeah. Well, I just think that's important to know that, you know, we have these objective measures of when we're going to stop, and that it's from a health perspective and a safety perspective, and somebody at the health department who deals with this is doing that. When I heard you say, like, well, we're grouped with Kalamazoo, and then based on our grouping, we may be rolled back to a phase, even if our numbers are good, you know, that's fine. But we also, if say in the whole Kalamazoo region, the numbers look okay, but our numbers in Calhoun County aren't, then we'll still roll back even if some of the other places aren't, right?
Yeah, we'll follow their guidelines. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do have to say, you know, I follow the cases and what's going on around the country and in the world with the coronavirus and schooling, because I do want to make sure that we're safe and going back. And I don't worry at this point about our students. When I look at the data, it seems like when there is students that have the coronavirus in the school, more often than not, like the overwhelming majority are not passing it to other classmates. They're getting it from their family and bringing it in and not passing it. We do have to be very careful, because we need to make sure that we're not complacent and we do all these precautions, because that's what keeps us safe. But when we look at numbers from like daycares and day camps back in March and April, when the spread in certain parts of the country was pretty bad. Like when we're looking at the New York example with it, they were not seeing spread through their camps and their daycares. They did see some parents that were sick, some staff that were sick, some students that were sick, but it was like one student, as opposed to one student is sick, comes in, and then spreads it to 2, 3, 4 other students. And so when I'm looking at the safety of going back to school, that's what I'm looking at is it really contributing to the community spread? We hear a lot of news, especially out of places like Georgia and Arizona and Florida. And we also have to remember that everything is really local on this. So when you have outbreaks among teachers who aren't even at school yet or at camps, Georgia's numbers per capita are more like 6 or 7 times our numbers. And so if I were in Georgia, I would probably not be sending my kids to school there. And so we just have to take it in that context, because those stories, I think, are very emotional and make us worry with it. But we have to look at our context and then look at, what else was going on. Are they doing all the things that we're doing? Are they doing the masking? Are they doing the social distancing? All of that stuff that helps keep us safer.
Thanks, Carrie. Richard, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just one follow-up on the I guess the public acknowledgement of that standard is, it seems like a fairly easy communication thing to be able to say to the teachers and staff, on a weekly basis, we continue to be at this level. Everything Carrie just said, we have extremely low chance in our community. We will tell you if anything changes. And then Eric at the health department, use the, Denso, there's a manufacturing cell and 12 people all get sick, on the same cell. That's a very, or Randy, your example of the Albany College doing the testing, those shouldn't affect our community spread numbers. And it just seems like a communication thing. And again, helps the teachers feel comfortable that they're safe, and obviously they need to do the things that they need to do and encourage the students to do the things as well, which will be a challenge. But, with those things, I think we can do it safely.
Yes.
All right, I'll be quiet now.
Well, Richard, let me underscore that too, is that in the frequently asked questions from the subcommittee on health and wellness, there's also a comment, and in fact, Eric talked to us, the superintendents, about this, that a positive student in a classroom doesn't denote contagion and spreading, spreading it to others. He could be past the contagious stage and have positive. The other piece of that is, if there is a student or a parent or an adult that's contagious, if you're wearing your face mask, if you're social distancing appropriately, if you're not breaking social distance by getting close to that person for a period of time, then you're really not going to be high risk to be able to pick that up. If you're not touching and then touching your face and those types of things. So there's a lot of things there that we can teach our kids and teach our staff. If we practice with fidelity, at least the staff, then we know that we're going to be able to mitigate those issues and mitigate the risks that our employees are going to experience in schools. And hopefully our children will learn from that and also be able to decrease their risk of being able to pick that up. But none of these mitigation strategies or protocols are intended to prevent absolute no cases. All of them are designed to provide us opportunities to keep as safe as possible, knowing that this virus really is not going to go away. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen a virus really go away. The issue is, can we handle it? Can we manage it? Can we deal with it with vaccinations and so forth, and live with this kind of virus?
I think, Lisa, I see that you're unmuted. Were you looking to talk?
Yeah. So looking at it more like from a timeline perspective, we're going to be voting next Tuesday. Tonight we're looking at
Monday.
Next Monday. Tonight we had an explanation. It's up there for people to view. The more detailed plan will be for people to view. So between now and then, can you comment more, like, are we looking then to say like, yep, this is a tentative plan that still needs to be officially approved, but what can be happening between now and next Monday is, letting our grade level teachers meet, letting our content level teachers and administrators meet so that they can be putting together some of these finer details of both the in-person and the online plan, so that all these questions about what, like Carrie brought up earlier, what does that online look like? Who's going to teach that? Is it going to be everybody? Is it going to be a few designated teachers? What that day looks like. Because I know we keep asking about these plans for, schedules for the teachers and what that day looks like for the kids, so that they can be putting some of these pieces together. So we're not just spending the next week kind of in limbo, but they can actually move forward and get some of these details using this time wisely, I guess, so that they can, like I said, again, just kind of knowing what that's going to look like a little bit more, whether they're getting their content put into Google Classroom, getting help with Google Classroom if they're not comfortable. So I guess, can you comment a little bit about that as far as like, what's the timeline and plan from now until next Monday? Like what's that looking like?
Yeah, so Lisa, we have, there's an MTA meeting scheduled coming up because there's implications on work conditions. Just a case in point, when students show up to the school, where do they go immediately to get into their, their homeroom or their seminar area to be in with a cohort group? Does that mean the teachers are covering that class then, so that no longer do they have that 15-minute or 20-minute leeway when they report to work? They're actually now covering kids. There's a whole lot of things that we had to work through those details. So we're ongoing with them on that. Principals team meeting is scheduled already for this week to bring the principals together. I have to just do it with principals because we have to abide by the 10 or less rule right now, but we want to do it in person so we can walk through a lot of the things that you're talking about and some of the marching orders they need to have to go forward. I think internal also is our advisory group and our committee work. And the subcommittee work, continuing to report out some of those things, like, for example, the frequently asked questions. How do we dress that up and make that available to our families and our staff? And what is that messaging going to look like? There's a lot of things that we're doing on that end. And then I'd like to see us at least open up to a couple virtual forums for the public. If we can come to agreement that we're all comfortable with the model that we're espousing at this point, you're letting me move forward and making that operational as best possible before we do our final recommendation to the board on Monday. I'd like to hear from the community about it after they get comfortable with it. And they can look at it and ask the questions that they need to ask. And if I don't have the answers, I'll refer them to their principals. But that's pretty much what I'm thinking.
Yeah, because I know it would make me more comfortable as well to have a little bit more detail. And I know it's hard to get detail when you don't have, like the go ahead to start working on some of that. So we have to have somewhat of a tentative plan in order to fill in some of those pieces that we're all looking for. So it would be nice to just, be able to see that leadership and the teachers are being able to plan a little bit better and move a little bit more forward.
And this is our best effort today.
Yeah. Next question was timeline again. So next Monday, we'll have a formal vote on whether to adopt this plan or not. And then can you go over for parents and families when they're going to need to decide which option is the best for them so that they can kind of be looking and deciding which path they want to go down?
Well, I can tell you that the 11th was the original date, but that was when we were talking about a third party provider. Let me go back and talk to them. I think we can push that back out. Obviously, we're going to be open for any of those decisions all the way up to the day that school starts. I think next week after the board makes their determination to approve or not, once we get that approval, we would then have more open forums, or in fact have building level forums that they can bring parents in that are sending their kids to the middle school to talk to staff and principals about that. So we're going to be more engaged in that process leading up to trying to answer some of those building specific questions. So I mean, I think that's part of what we need to do immediately following Monday's board session.
Is there any plan to get more a more accurate tentative number on how many students are interested in virtual versus in person? Because I think it kind of affects a lot of these different details that we're working on as far as the classroom setups, you know, everything from busing to you know, teachers, and how many first graders versus fifth graders want in person. Is there anything in the works to kind of get us a little bit better idea of numbers?
In the works, I'd say the conversation is going that way. I mean, that's what we've been trying to do with setting these benchmark or deadlines. As early as this afternoon, or as late as this afternoon, we had 6 others join in on the survey and indicate what their preference was. So, I mean, it's still out there. It's still available. If people have not responded to that survey, they need to continue. It's open. So I'll ask Chad to continue to push that envelope, and also the principals to push that envelope, because you're right, we do need to have that. I mean, part of the reason why we went from 4 and 1 at the high school to 2 and 3 is because Dave did a lot of really nice work on anticipating schedules for students. And I think he had, at the time he was making the recommended change, and to illustrate to this person here, that it not only was square footage of the classroom, but it was also how many students had to sign up for that particular class. Once we saw that, he had like 70% of the students scheduled in, and there was another 30% that we don't know. And we don't know what we don't know as far as how many kids are going to show up and enroll. So all of that kind of led to my agreement that, no, you're right, this needs to be different than what we had originally anticipated. The reason why it took us a little time to get to the middle school is because we had to go through the same process of, well, what does it look like on scheduling for the middle school? And we were able to get that cleared up yesterday to the point where it's obvious that it is, again, the same scenario for secondary grades. So that's why we made the decision and the change yesterday afternoon for the model that we were purporting. Those things happen in real time and based on when our staff are able to get the data and bring it back to us. So I'll ask Chad to continue to put out announcements that this survey is very important and still available and open for those who haven't participated yet.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So what about people who may have changed their mind? Like, if there's people that filled out the survey a while ago, do you have them fill it out again?
Yeah, it's fluid. I would imagine that's already happened online.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it does sound like definitely people need to opt into virtual or all remote, but I feel like people should also have to opt into in-person too, so that we know that there's a full understanding of, we need to do masking, we need to do social distancing, because if they aren't able to do that, then they need to be in the all virtual. And I don't know if there's a certain amount of people out there that just are not paying attention.
Well, and in the preparedness and response plan, you'll see that we are going to require parents to sign an agreement of supporting the safety conditions that are required in our schools. And it also indicates how we're going to handle it if there's flat out refusal to do so.
I also wonder if, I think I was one of those parents who was like, yes, a month ago in person, get these kids in school. And then our cases have risen, and now there's there's outbreaks in different locations. And I wonder also with the changes in the plan, if parents might change their mind if they realize that my child has to wear a mask all day. If they go back and say, well, I don't want my child to wear a mask. Maybe I want to go 100% virtual.
Yes.
I mean, I know you could survey people all day, every day, and get a different result every time, but a month is a lot of time that has gone by when things are changing so rapidly, and we're getting down to the nitty-gritty details of a plan for our families.
Yeah, but Amanda, we've reminded people about that survey not just a month ago. It's been reminded before, between then and now, and it's also open. So what I've said is I'll have Chad continue to put that out there and make sure people are reconsidering or considering what their options are going to be. We're going to have to get to the point where ultimately they're going to have to enroll. and when they enroll, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with and how everything settles in regards to in-person versus remote learning. And I have no judgment one way or the other about the efficacy of one or the other. I think our teachers will do a great job either way. I'm sorry, I'm losing my I voted sticker. So I think we're just going to have to continue to be fluid in this and plan accordingly based on the evidence that we have in front of us. And we'll continue to encourage people to respond to it.
So Randy, with that, sorry, Amanda, just to kind of throw, it may be beneficial. I'm not sure if parents are aware that they can go in and change if they had submitted the survey earlier. So if Chad's going to do any communication, maybe being able to let parents know that if they've changed from their original submission, how they'd go about doing that. So then we can capture that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say Chad and Kelly have a new form for parents to fill out? And so they can go ahead and get that posted so we can get that taken care of.
So there's a brand new survey that's going out to parents, or it's the same survey?
Becky, you want to clarify?
Okay, Kelly is saying a form.
Kelly just said a form.
It's a new form for people to fill out. Sorry, my lawn mowing guy is here. It's real loud.
A new form to enroll in virtual, or?
Kelly, can you explain?
It's a new form for people to enroll in virtual or in person for both.
Got it.
Yeah, it's so with keeping in mind that the plan has changed, the situation has changed, people's preferences have changed, their circumstances may have changed. So it's I hope that the general population doesn't feel like they need to fill out another form. It's more if they want to email Chad because they already filled it out and they don't want to fill out another one, they can do that. Okay, but this way, if people have changed their mind or their situation has changed, maybe they have internet now where they didn't before, things like that. It's kind of a clean slate for us to use to populate data. So.
Yeah, I think that's really important to get an idea of where our numbers lie, because so many of these details depend on that. So I think that's just going to be really important to know for, how many classrooms we need, tables, chairs, supplies, you name it, all the way down to, what the virtual is going to look like and how many kids in each grade are signed up for that, how many physics students we have, and like Carrie said, how many Spanish students do we have versus third graders, fifth grade, kindergartners. So I think that information and having those numbers is really important to the best that we can. Obviously, there might not be a ton of change all the way up to the first day of school, but I think if we can get those numbers sooner than later, just to make some, let our staff, let our administrators and our teachers do that planning that they need to do for all these little details is going to be very important.
Amanda?
So first of all, I want to say that I still think that it's very ironic that more than 10 people aren't allowed into a room, yet we're creating these plans for back to school and we can have 20 kids in a room, even though I understand that kids aren't supposed to be super spreaders, but now additional research is coming out where kids are indeed spreaders. And I know this is a new virus and we're still learning things every day, all the time. And Carrie, I know you're saying, no, they're not super spreaders, but I've been trying to figure out what exactly, what research is out there. So
Yeah, I'm just saying that the older kids certainly can spread it, and super spreader is more of a term for somebody who spreads it to a ton of people. So most adults are not super spreaders. It would be maybe 10% of adults that would be super spreaders. But I have not seen anything that says at this point that kids are, like the younger kids, the elementary school kids, really spread it a lot. There are some studies that say, well, they have a high viral load, but what matters more is whether they spread it, not if they have a high viral load. And we have to look at what's happened across the world as well as in the US about the spread. And particularly like in that Georgia camp, you had people that weren't wearing masks, weren't necessarily social distancing, that were sleeping overnight, that were yelling and singing indoors. We don't know who actually spread it to them. And so that's very different. And so I would say that still the knowledge base is that kids don't spread it as much. They certainly still can spread it. They don't spread it nearly as much as the teenagers and the adults. And that's where I think we have to be real careful with is our older student population.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I was happy to see that the plan had been amended to require face coverings for all students and staff in the plan. So I was happy about that. I wonder, Randy, if you can tell us what your sense is for teachers being comfortable with the plan, because I'm sure you, as you have mentioned, you've received a lot of feedback from teachers and parents and community members. And I know us as a board have received a lot of feedback from teachers and parents and community members. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I won't be in a classroom teaching kids. Nobody making these decisions is going to be in a classroom teaching our kids. And I want to make sure that they are as comfortable as you can be during the midst of a plan in which we are trying to educate our kids in a pandemic. I feel like, so that was one. I feel like teachers are back on August 24th. That's 2 days before our kids come back in school. And bless the hearts of all our administrators and teachers and support staff that have been spending their summer break trying to brainstorm and come up with these plans and wrestle with all of these daunting questions that I'm sure at times seem never ending. But at the end of the day, we're not the ones in the classrooms. And I want to make sure that, number one, they have the tools that they need in order to teach our kids in the best way possible. And number two, that they feel as comfortable as they can teaching our students, whether it's in person or whether it's virtually.
Okay, so I don't know the comfort level of our teachers, every teacher across the board. I do know that we are all extremely anxious, and everyone included in this group and everybody out there thinking about what to do next with my children and what's going to go on with schooling and what's right and what's not right. What do we know, what we don't know? I can tell you that we've been consistent in the message that we're trying to put forward about safety. We've been listening and modifying our positions on things both ways to try to figure out how do we get these scenarios down. We're not going to have the one answer that's going to be great for everybody. And we're not going to meet every individual's desire of what our school is going to look like. the best thing we can do is to provide choice. And when we provide choice for in-person, we do it with a huge measure of caution and safety relative to what we think is in best practice and what we're learning from the field. We tried to do that. I think this model that we have now is the best that we can provide. I think, your concerns about teachers being prepared. Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I think when more information comes out tailored towards our parents and our teachers and staff and administrators and MPS board members from the Committee on Health, that things will start to, okay, I see there's a window here that we're able to operate in. I think we can do that as long as we're responsible and mindful of the safety practices that we're required to do. All of us that are in this school district, anywhere from the aide and the food service worker and team to the maintenance workers, all the way through everybody, bus drivers, the whole 9 yards, will be subjected to some level of risk, because that's what we have to do. And I'm concerned that if we don't practice what we say we need to practice, that risk will elevate. And I believe that the urgency should be the motivation behind us doing the right thing. The urgency should be behind us providing a viable educational system for our kids, that we're going to meet the needs of the kids as they present, and that we're going to try to keep themselves and the students and ourselves as safe as possible in the process. And in and of itself, that's the comfort to know that my colleagues across the way are every bit as diligent as I am. And in fact, maybe more so, that they can call me out if I don't do something right, and it's okay. That I can be reminded that, oh yeah, that needs to be different. I think we're open to that. I think this journey that we've had since March has been incredibly fulfilling, extremely challenging, high stress, high anxiety, but very fulfilling, because it's opened up different levels of communication and understanding among people that are at the table talking about these things. And so I have faith and I have hope that we're going to move forward through this. I don't think we're doing this in a reckless way at all. I think we've been doing this in a very studied way, and I'm confident that we've done everything we can to this level. And I'm looking forward to seeing what my principals and their teams and their building levels come up with. There are going to be best practices that'll come out of an elementary school, and out of that discussion, it'll be, wow, that's a great idea. Can we apply it across the board? And that's what we've been doing now. We're going to do much more of that as we get more and more heads around the table. If people come at it with, yes, our mission is to educate students. Our mission is to keep ourselves and our kids safe. Our mission is to make sure we take care of each other emotionally and socially, and through a mental health perspective, and to provide the best quality education we can provide. I think we've come at that, and we have a commitment internally to ourselves that we keep ourselves safe and others around us safe, then I think we're going to be fine.
Yeah, so I just want to, I know for me personally, I think so I was the one that advocated for no third party. I will own that, and I stand behind that 100%. I think our teachers are very well qualified. If they get what they need and they get the training and the tools that they need, I know that they will prevail. I know that they will give our kids the best education possible. That being said, I know there's tons of concerns about, how do I teach virtually? How do I teach in person? How do I do both? They require different lesson plans. So if there is a way to separate responsibilities, or do something like that to lighten the load for our teachers, I know your great minds will think of it, because I think that could be a potential pitfall on some of this, because there's the virtual and the in-person part of the instruction that's proposed in the plan. The other thing that I want to bring up is, you know, I came to you guys last fall about the air conditioning and the buildings that weren't air conditioned in our district. And I know that the cooling centers were installed and that was somewhat sufficient for the time being. And those were installed in the cafeteria and the library. And now here we have COVID, and that isn't really going to work well for our students at Hughes, Harrington, and the middle school. I am wondering if there's, I know those classrooms can get pretty hot, and I'm, you know, with face masks or face coverings on, it can get even hotter, I'm sure. So I'm wondering if there is some creative thinking that we can put our brains together to think about ways to cool those buildings other than going outside or things like that, which isn't always feasible.
We certainly have that in mind, Amanda. I can't give you any specifics on that. King Scott has been talking to us about that. There are some opportunities where you can mitigate some of that. I think most importantly is blowing fans around in the interior of the building is probably the best option that you can have. So we have to make sure that we find solutions to that. King Scott has a few of them. They're a bit costly. We'll take a look at all of those things. We're continually looking at the infrastructure and the plan for implementing that come fall and into the December month to start on those, getting the infrastructure ready at Hughes in particular to start with. So there's things that we're working with towards that, but we'll see. I'll continue to look at that, take advice and guidance from, I know Brad's looking at that and talking with his fellow facilities directors and those types of things as well. We'll keep you posted on how that's moving along.
Okay. And then I've heard there was a little bit touched on with kids that are in our special education classes and that have 504s and IEPs and things like that. I certainly don't want them to get lost in the mix or lost in the transition. The plan did mention that a little bit. I'm wondering for our parents that might be watching if you can go into a little bit more detail. I know in one of the sections, it said that K-12 students with an IEP or 504 may attend in person up to 4 days per week in any building. I know these are details and the devil's in the details, but
well, and possibly even 5 days, depending on what the IEP requires. Right now, there's a subcommittee for special ed. It's run by Jamie Rogers, and she's working hard on all of those issues and nuances about special needs students and students with 504s. I haven't seen the full report compiled yet from her committee, but I have every confidence that she's taking care of that. She's outstanding. So I'll let her bring that forward, and I'll share that with you guys when the details written down.
Anything else, Amanda?
not for right now.
Okay. Shauna, I'll throw it out. I don't know if you have anything you want to go through. Just making sure we cover everybody.
Yeah, I think I agree with Lisa in terms of us needing numbers. And I think that the frustrating part with that is because we've been asking for some of these numbers for quite some time. And we also know that like the committee can't really make any plans. The teachers can't make any plans if we don't have an idea of who's doing what. So, I mean, there's a couple responses to that. I mean, one of them could be we take the survey that we had from July and we see what those numbers say. The other response could be similar to what happened in March, where the committee takes this new form that they've created and they contact everybody, just like, you know, just like it was done in March. So they contact everybody so they know this, as of today, this is what we're thinking. We know people will change their minds. That part's understood, but we'll at least have something to work with, because we can make all the plans in the world, but if we have no idea like what these actual numbers are, what buildings they're in, then we can't really, we're kind of just philosophizing on what things might look like. And I think that has been one of the biggest things that I've heard is how can we make decisions on, what our teachers are going to be doing when they go back to school when we don't know who's going to be there. Also, we don't have our capacities laid out yet. So we might not have had time to have capacities for every single classroom. That makes sense. We have a huge district. However, we should have capacities for some of our classrooms, and we don't have those numbers yet. So that's a really important thing for me to know before I can say, yes, I think that this plan is absolutely feasible. Let's work out the details. The other question that I have, and I think you can respond to both of these together. The other question that I have is about teachers specifically. Like, do teachers have the option to choose virtual only, or do they have to respond in person? Like, what if they, based on their own personal concerns and preferences as well, do they have that same choice? Let's see. So yeah, I'll stop there for now.
The last point is that teachers that feel they are at a higher risk of seeing students in person have been asked to, they were asked by their association and by their HR department that if you have those concerns, you need to fill out a document and send it in, and then Lisa follows up with that. So there are options for that. Do they just have a unilateral choice to not teach in person without being high risk? Probably not. I'd say no, they don't. They do have, there may be opportunities for them to say, I'd rather teach, if you're creating a position just to teach remotely for like a grade band in elementary, I want to put my hat in the ring for that. So we're going to have to figure out how that's going to go. Lisa has already talked with us about getting that out there so that we understand if we're going to go that direction, how are we going to select the teacher that gets to do that position or not? We haven't made those decisions firm yet. So that's the only way they would have a choice, Shauna, is if we offered the opportunity for a reassignment in that way, and teachers decide to go for it.
Okay. So I think the other question that I have, and this might be a question for Carrie actually, like, do we have actual data that shows children being in, like recent data that shows children being in close proximity more than 10, that talks about what COVID looks like for them, that's recent versus, the stuff that we've heard from like summer camps and things like that in different places?
I don't know how recent. The biggest study that was looking at kids transmitting was really out of South Korea. And I think maybe it was data from May, I'm not really sure, but that's the one that brought out that it looks like the teenage kids can spread it just as well as adults, but the younger kids don't. And it's not that they don't ever spread it, it's just that they're not very good at spreading it. And partly it's because they have smaller lung capacity, don't have as much sort of that movement out, that they are shorter. And so if, say, you're interacting with a little kid and their germs are well below where you're breathing in, that they're going to be less likely to spread it. There's some things about just some of the receptors that the virus needs to be infective, that there's changes in those, so that might be related. So there is the recent one in Detroit. So Detroit Public Schools did have summer school. And I don't remember if it was Novi or there's some schools in the Detroit area that have had summer school, and there was a judge that made one of the school districts, the Detroit schools, test all the kids with it, and I think they had 3 positives, but they were in different schools. They were not spreading it amongst each other. So, you know, that was when I looked at it last, I think they had maybe 350 or 400 of the 600 kids tested so far. So I don't know the total, but we have data from those kids, but we don't, like in the US, because there has not been a lot of schools open, we don't have a lot of data to say, hey, in Michigan, in Calhoun County, when your numbers are such and such, that you're going to be okay. And I don't even know if we have data to say like this 40 cutoff is better than 35 or 45 or 50. And you know, the health department maybe will give us those numbers. But I do think we know that, like, if you're in Florida or if you're in Georgia or Texas and some of those other places, you're going to be a lot higher risk, because just in the community, you know, not from school, but from elsewhere, you're at a high risk of getting it, and then you come to school. And so, you know, you could spread it there. In the communities, a lot of times it's these bigger group, like these parties or funerals or weddings that are triggering a lot of the spread and are not necessarily having the same precautions. So if we put 16 people in a room and they're all social distancing and wearing masks, the risk is going to be a lot less than if you just had a social gathering amongst your friends and we're not wearing masks. You know, I don't necessarily see a lot of people just when I'm out about wearing masks when it looks like it's like a party with family or friends, you know, in their house where there's enough people that I know it's not just their immediate family. So there's a lot of differences, but no, I don't think that we have something, and we won't until probably 6 weeks, 8 weeks in, to say, hey, this is what happens when you have this level in your community.
So with that being said, the other thing that I was wondering about is, well, not even wondering about. So we talked a little bit yesterday about the recommendations from the health department on whether or not we have to screen. And so when I read through that, I mean, it says that it's for concern with time, like how much time it would take for certain schools to actually screen every child that comes in. And so I'm wondering about that. I'm wondering about if we can, so it's not saying don't do it. It's just saying, you know, if you think it's going to be too much time, you don't have to, you know, rely on parents. But it also gave suggestions for possibly like the first hour teacher, or obviously for smaller kids, when they first get to school and they get in their classroom, to have that teacher screen them. And I'm wondering about that because of the fact that we don't have a lot of data. And we also know, based on, you know, being around schools all our lives, parents don't always, for whatever reason, keep their kids home when they're feeling sick. You know, it could be 1,000 different reasons why. And so because of that, and because we know that the symptoms don't always show up all together, sometimes it's just a runny nose, and you might have a fever, or you might not have anything. If we are showing an extra level of precaution by actually screening the kids when they come into school, that might just help. It might give comfort. It also might help us stop the students from going in and around other kids, you know, depending on how that part works out, if they're going straight to their first hour class or whatever. So yeah, I'm wondering about that part, the actual screening when they come into class versus just relying on parents to do that part.
Shauna, what do you refer to as screening though? Can you help me know? I mean, is that the questionnaire and the checking for symptomology? Yeah. So the training that the staff are all going to receive, teachers are all going to receive, are what to look for in those symptomologies. And that then leads to their ability to be able to recognize when students may be having those and putting those two, oh, I see this child is doing this, this, and this. I need to send them down to the office right away. It's not, at some point they're going to congregate, whether it's in their classroom for first hour, or it's going to be in their seminar room, or it's going to be in a home room or something with their home teacher. And those will be the key points. The very first time we have contact with them, try to figure out, is any child looking feverish, having cough, having sneezing going on, or et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's where we're going to encourage our teachers to be able to then identify and then send students up to the office if they feel that or get them taken to the office if they feel they're at risk, just to double check on those students. I agree, not every family is going to be able to follow through for whatever those reasons would be. And we have to always expect that we should be doing a lot of that ourselves as well. So we'll figure out how that works. But I think the first point of contact when the students are together in their cohort or in their congregated group for the first time in the building, that's when they need to be looking for those signs.
And I also would encourage us to be able to take temperatures. I mean, if that's what they're doing in doctor's offices, just to be cautious, simple temperature checks and those questions, that might be something that we are able to provide as well.
We can do that at the building level down at the office when kids come up with symptoms. It's really logistically extremely difficult to do that as students are coming in the building because of the outside impact of that and the timing of that and how to get the kids progressively in without congregating in lines and things like that. So to do social distancing and bring 500 students into a building is extremely difficult to do. To identify students that may look that they have symptoms, or they're reporting that they have some symptoms, that's when you send them down to the office and have them get their temperature checked. That's not considered to be indiscriminate. That's more direct checking of health situations that our nurses or secretaries do all the time. So I agree with you, temperatures need to be there. We have temps, forehead temperature readers that are available at all of our buildings, as well as some of our departments.
So maybe it's something that could be done, like you said, when they first get together in a first hour versus trying to do it when everyone's coming in to stop that issue. I just don't, if we're able to do it for every student, it makes it more uniform, and it makes everyone, no one's getting pointed out for whatever reason. I just feel like that's something we're begging for an issue from. If we're like, you look like you have a fever, you know what I'm saying? So if we're able to, and it also, one of the things that I think we ought to keep in mind is, school's not going to look like it looks, no matter how hard we try, it's just not. And so understanding that it's going to take time to do other things. It might take more time because we have to screen, or it might take more time because we have to make sure that we're physically distanced. It might take more time because we have to set something up before we're able to start teaching. Like, I don't know what all those scenarios may be, but I just want to make sure that the committee and that our teachers are aware that they have the ability to think outside the box on how some of this stuff is going to work, because it's not anything we've ever done before, and there's no way we can look like we used to look and follow the rules. So
yes, and what you said is if we're able to do that. So let me double check. If we're able to do that in a classroom setting with a number of students that are not related to each other, can we do that kind of testing there as a temperature gauge? It may not be supported by legal counsel, or it may because we're not doing it indiscriminately in a hallway and things like that, maybe it's better. I don't know, but I'll ask that question with Truan.
And I just like to say too that I know that the health subcommittee has brought some of these things up and have been discussing them and finding out what the best practices are for that. So hopefully when they get done putting all that together is the work that they've been meeting for, that hopefully that will answer some of those questions as well, because they've been looking into a lot of those.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa. Larry, I think everybody else has had an opportunity. I want to make sure I give you an opportunity if you have any questions or comments.
I don't have any questions. I do have some comments. First of all, I'd like to commend the administration, the superintendent, and those people who are serving on the committee. I've just been able to gather so much information. It's a lot of information to sort through. But I think they have put us in a position where we have some choices, and in my opinion, some very good choices and options for families. I think the question that was asked earlier by Randy was whether or not we would be comfortable or give him some sense of an ideal of whether or not they should move forward with so that they can get into the planning stages. From my standpoint, I feel comfortable enough. I can support the plan is laid out, and would encourage the superintendent to move forward and kind of put some of these pieces together and answer some of these other questions that are out there. But I think it's time that we can kind of move forward. You know, one of the concerns as always with me has been the safety. I feel comfortable with the safety as it's presented for teachers and students right now. 100% foul-proof, no, but I think we're in pretty good shape. I've talked to some other people from other districts, and I just got a sense that we are a little bit ahead of where other people are. So I would encourage the superintendent and committees to go forward with trying to put some meat to the bones and move forward.
Thanks, Larry. So any other questions from any board members?
I have a comment.
Sure.
So I forgot about that question that Randy asked initially, like, what do we think about the model in general? And so I think for me, the biggest piece, there's two big pieces that I feel like I'm missing for me to be able to say, yes, I think this plan is worth moving forward with. And the biggest one is those numbers. So even if we use the numbers from the survey that we have, so we have some sort of general idea of who it is we're looking at bringing back. Yeah, so I mean, that's important for everyone in terms of how to make that decision. And then the other thing is whether or not we will be able to screen, like if it's, you know, we have to worry about FERPA and HIPAA, what that looks like, because those are the two biggest things that I have heard questions about. And that will also answer the question about busing, which is the third biggest thing, depending on how many kids we have coming back. Even preliminary numbers, those three things will tell us, or will answer those three questions, which are the things that I'm hearing the most about. So once we have some of those numbers, I think that depending on what those numbers look like, I think I'd be definitely able to make an informed decision based on those two things.
I'm sorry, Sean, is that to give final approval, or is that to just say we should move forward and start putting these things all in place?
So that would be move forward, because we don't know what those numbers are. So because we have the data, if it was something that, you know, we had to go out and like create from scratch, that'd be a different story. But because we have this data, we can use what we have to say, here's what these numbers actually mean. Instead of just throwing the percentages out there, we can say, here's what these numbers mean. We have, 80% of our elementary kids are coming back or want to come back based on this survey. 10% of the middle school, 10% of the high school. I don't know what the numbers are, for those listening, I'm making that up. But that gives you a way to move forward. Like, how do we move forward if we have zero idea of which buildings these kids are talking about coming back to? So that's what I mean.
Carrie, I see you came off mute.
Oh, I just had a health and safety question that is regardless of model with it, of just like with parents as well as with staff. I'm certainly concerned about the masking and whether it's going to be enforced or how it's going to be enforced. Like from the teacher perspective of like, I don't want to spend all my time constantly reminding people of doing their masks. And I think particularly at the older grades, you shouldn't have to constantly remind them. And so of whether we have come up with a definitive policy of how many times kids have to be reminded, or like, to me, it seems more obvious when somebody is just really defiant and says, no, I'm not going to, and they keep it under their nose. But it's different when you have somebody that will put it over their nose when you say something, but then 10 minutes later, it's under their nose. So what kind of policy do we have in place to make teachers feel comfortable that if they're having a problem with the student will be removed from their rooms? And then what do we have in place to make sure that, like even just from the teacher perspective, that they're enforcing it as well? Because there are probably some teachers that are more concerned about it than others. But if we don't have a consistent message across all the teachers and administration of telling the students, hey, you need to have your mask on all the time, I think it's going to be harder to enforce.
So you want me
maybe you could just comment about what the teachers have said in the subcommittee about what has been put out there, if they're comfortable about the policy, how they're going to respond to people that aren't complying.
Yeah, I've said before that we start with education, and we educate kids about the reasons why it's good for them, it's good for me, and why they're wearing the mask, and they're good community members to be able to do that. If it goes to flat refusal and obstinance about wearing the mask, refusal to put that on, they're going to be removed from the in-person situation, and they'll be given remote teaching and learning. As far as staff members are concerned, and I can't tell you how many times that's going to happen, Carrie, but I can tell you that that's generally where we're going with that. In regards to teachers, it's required. It's all of us, every employee, it's required to do that. If they get a couple warnings, just like we would do with a student, and they're not wearing their mask and they're refusing not to practice safely for the students that are in their care or in the building or for their coworkers, then we have to take disciplinary action.
So I just feel like I need more than just, we're mainly going to educate people, because I think of my experience when I'm sitting in a room with somebody and it may be 20 or 30 minutes and I have to tell them to adjust their mask and pull their mask over their nose 3 or 4 times in that relatively short period of time with just 1 or 2 people. And then you have a classroom that may be 15 people and they may be there, for hours. And, I do get tired of it. And then sometimes I just, give up. Occasionally I tell people, well, you can't come in anymore. You have to, do by phone. But, it is something that even on a short period of time, I've had to tell people 2 or 3 times to wear their mask appropriately.
Yeah, sometimes that just becomes habit, where the way they're talking, it slides down off their nose and stuff. I do that. I watch that even with professionals I'm with. And part of that is, you got to put it, you got to remind them a number of times. That's going to happen anyways. Teachers will have to do that. Staff will have to do that. when it gets down to the point where we know that it's just a refusal or that they're not being compliant, then that's when you have to take in disciplinary action, both for staff and students.
But even if it's not intentional, if it's below their nose, that's still like a health risk. And so if people have masks that aren't fitting so that they aren't staying above their nose, that might be nice if we had little metal clips that they could just put so that it does, or maybe have some sort of suggestions to the families about, hey, this is where you can go to get a mask that will fit and won't slip.
Well, we'll
with
put
it, 'cause I,
the throwaway masks that actually do have that little metal thing in there. We can always replace it and say, you can't use that cloth mask. It's obviously not working for you. I mean, there's ways that we can implement that, Carrie. I just can't give you all those details. That conversation has to come out of the principals team and what they can and can't support, and then we'll bring it back to board and let you know how we're acting on it. But
yeah, and it's not just something like a policy that I feel like I have to approve. It's just, as a parent, if I'm thinking about sending my kid to in-person, I want to know, well, what are you going to do to make this safe? That we can say people are going to wear masks, but if they don't actually wear them consistently, then I may not feel comfortable with that. And I want the teachers to feel comfortable as well of, hey, if this person is not doing what I think they need to keep me safe, that I can remove that individual from my room.
So can I ask you what you're feeling about the model at this point? Are you saying you're comfortable for us to move forward to get more details behind that, or are you saying no?
Yeah, no, I'm overall, I'm fairly comfortable with it, except for just my degree of comfort with the ability for the teachers to do everything, of doing the in-person and the remote for all students, for all classes with it. I just don't think that that's feasible, and I don't want the virtual students to take away from the in-person experiences, and I don't want the in-person to take away from the virtual experiences. And I know people are going to be real anxious, and when you're really anxious, you're not necessarily on your top game with it, and so it may be harder to put everything that is needed into it. And I don't think that it's because people won't try their hardest. It's just when people are really stressed, you just don't do your best performance. So that's what I get concerned about, particularly like things like the languages. I think that's more difficult. And we do allow the Marshall Opportunity School students to do the virtual, and we were going to offer it to the middle school students for the language. So I don't want us to be blocked into just the MPS teachers teaching it if we're finding that it's not a real feasible model over the next week. And for the parent that did say that she was looking at whether to do virtual through MPS or whether she needs to go to a different place to do virtual, it would be nice to know that that information would be out there as soon as possible so that they could make those decisions. But if everybody is supporting the teachers do all the virtual, that's not going to be the thing that makes me vote no. I would probably vote yes with it.
Okay, thank you.
Richard?
I just wanted to add again, I'm a yes if we can get the timing right on this. And so I'm concerned, and I'm thinking about what happened when we brought the middle school kids over from Albion. And I came around with a 3-3 vote, and I cast my vote in support of that. It is one of the votes I've regretted along the way because I don't think we were prepared for that. There were just too many things that were going on at once. And I've lost track of the number of times that Dr. Davis has said, we're going to have to look at that, or we're going to have to analyze that, or we're going to have to fill that out. And again, part of this is it's a self-imposed deadline. And I think just to say next Monday, we support going forward, but if it takes a month and a half to implement it, and I'm just thinking about, from hospitals and from employers. And Marshall, we were able to find hand sanitizer when it was something that there wasn't any hand sanitizer available. And so we're talking about, going out and buying PPE for a big organization, plexiglass, all the different pieces. I'm not sure those things have been done. I've listened to 2 of the committee meetings now, and I'm confident that we've got a bunch of really smart people and they're working on it, but it's also a really short period of time to do this. And my understanding is that and I apologize if I'm wrong, is that the union and the administration, we, I guess, could agree to modify that and allow a different time to start. I just feel like it would create a whole another level of comfort to have a little more time. I'm talking comfort with the teachers and comfort with the students and comfort with the community to do that. So if that's a caveat that we can do, I'll be supportive. If that's not, then I likely will vote no next Monday on it. But those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Who else? Anybody else? Amanda, Lisa? I see
So I
Shauna
have
just unmuted,
another
sorry.
question. Yeah, I have another question. So I forgot what my question was. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'll watch for you to unmute and come back to you. Amanda?
I think kind of along the lines of what Carrie was saying and Richard was saying, a plan is only as good as the way that it's executed. And if our teachers don't feel comfortable, and if we can't pull this off, I would, and I'm sure all districts are wrestling with this, right? Everybody is trying to scramble, and school is on August 26th. The teachers come back on August 24th. Thank you to the teachers that are already working, but this is 2 days to, and maybe there are additional plans, 2 days to take all of your bookshelves out of your classrooms, 2 days to create lessons plan potentially for in-person and virtual, 2 days to learn about all of these health procedures, 2 days to do a whole bunch of things that sometimes I think we get stuck in this box of we have to do it this way. And I know there are contracts and I know there are negotiations, but we are in the midst of a global pandemic. And I think everybody recognizes that, understands that, and know that we have to be fluid and flexible in order to do what's best for our kiddos and their families. And so I just want to make sure that we have all of our T's crossed and I's dotted so that even though we are in the midst of a global pandemic, that our teachers, our students, and our families feel supported and they feel like they are getting the best possible education. And if that means it takes a couple more days or a week or 2 weeks, then we owe it to our kids and our families to do that. But if the committee and Randy and everybody else thinks that we got this and we're good and we don't need the extra time, then I will absolutely consider that.
Thank you. Shauna, do you remember?
I remembered my question, yes. So just to kind of respond to what everyone's been saying. So, and I think I kind of said it myself too, that I feel like we don't have to adhere to some of the deadlines, except for when we're submitting a plan. I'm not sure how many of those other deadlines we have to adhere to. And I remember Randy mentioning something about like the calendar has to kind of be negotiated with the MTA and then possibly even MEA, which I'm wondering about that part. Is that something that I'm sorry?
That's the MTA.
Okay, so with that in mind, what I'm wondering about is if we don't pull our teachers that are willing into these subcommittees, like where they fit in, and ask them about those things. If one of the things that I believe his name is Nick brought up was that we have some sort of contract negotiation that's already been done to provide for a third party virtual learning already. So I don't know the details of that, I heard him say that the MTA wasn't happy with like this all virtual thing with no teachers involved. I don't know the details of that, but what I'm saying is, if we already have something in place, we explore that with them. We explore an extended calendar. We also talk about or changing our calendar, and we also talk about, does that mean we start school later? Does that mean we do online only for the first 9 weeks so that we have time to make this plan what the best that it can be? I don't know what that means. I'm just saying, like, those are options. The only thing that I have a question about when it comes to our actual deadlines is, what happens if we submit this to the state and they come back and say no, and we only have what that short amount of time to respond? So that's kind of like my suggestion in how to combat if they say no, but I just don't know what that would look like.
Randy,
I don't have an answer for that. I could just say, if that would happen, then we would certainly be in a world of renegotiation, wouldn't we?
A pickle.
Yeah. So Randy, just a follow-up question. So when we set the calendar, that was in cooperation with all the other schools in the ISD, in Calhoun County ISD, right? Like the start of school and things like that?
There's common calendar points.
Common calendar, yep. And do you, so you're in with other schools and that, are you hearing other schools looking to renegotiate the start of school or anything like that right now?
I've not heard that yet. I do know that, well, no, I haven't heard that yet. There may be one out there that already established a week earlier to start.
Okay.
But that was our option as well, and we approached that earlier.
Okay.
So
Lisa, I see Lisa on mute, so I'll let her go real quick.
I know it's getting late. And I guess I just feel like, to get to this point where we are, we've had some ideas in mind. Some of those have changed. We have new ideas now. Now we have a plan that both the MTA and all of the meetings with, Randy and everyone else have come up with our plan that it stands right now that we will vote on next week. And I feel like we need to give them that direction to say, yes, continue working, keep this ball going, keep the wheels going, so we can fill in some of these blanks that our community and our teachers need. And whatever that might look like, I trust our admin, I trust our teachers and the different groups that will be meeting to figure out, who's going to teach the virtual, what each building and grade is going to look like. I think we could talk for another 2 hours on ideas and questions and question marks. I think we need to give them the space to do what they do best, and to let the administrators meet with the teachers and the grade levels and content levels and let them start working on it. I'm excited to see what details come about in the next week, to kind of fill in those gaps on what their days are going to look like, what the students are going to look like, what virtual is going to look like, more detail. But if we don't give them the nod to say, yes, start working, start meeting, start putting this together, then we're going to meet again and be nowhere further than we are right now. So I feel like we owe it to them, using their expertise and their brilliance, to say, get going. Let's keep going. I shouldn't say get going. I should say keep going, because they've already been working on it. Some of them have been working all summer, giving up their personal time and vacations to get this going. And I think we owe it to them to say, take it and run and amaze us with your brilliance and your expertise next week, because I think that can happen.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm going to share a couple things real quick, but then I want to see if any other board members have questions before I move to public comment. Okay, seeing none. I guess, I've been kind of trying to facilitate versus offering my thoughts or anything like that. I'll just say that, my hats are off to, the superintendent, administrators, teachers, staff, all the way through. You guys have taken on this task that just seems insurmountable at times with where we're at in the world. We're in there with every other school district. I've talked to other board members. Everybody I've talked to is struggling with the same things. There's not one easy answer out there. And as I tell people, there are a ton more questions than we have answers, unfortunately, right now. But the piece that I want to really commend everybody on is we have not hesitated to bring questions forward. Probably driven Randy crazy with the number of questions that he gets to hear, but we're hearing from the community, we're hearing from teachers, we're hearing from everybody. We're presenting those to Randy and his team. They're evaluating them. We've seen some changes in the draft that's in front of us now due to questions being raised, concerns being raised, and the council going back and reevaluating and saying, oh yeah, that's a good idea, or no, let's do this, or let's do that. So I'm just, again, there's no easy answers. Where we're at right now, I know we're further ahead than a lot of districts. Communication's been amazing, getting things out there. And I also know how communication works. As great as it is, there's always people feeling they need more info, and we'll continue to do that. But again, I'll just say kudos and thank you to everybody that's worked so hard up to this point. And I know it's not anywhere close to being done, and we're just going to keep having to move forward and get everything figured out. So with that, if the board, I'm going to go to public comment, and then we'll have board member comments. So if there's something that somebody forgot from the board level, we'll be able to cover that at board member comments. So Derek, do we have anybody that is looking to do public comment?
We have Kelly and Tracy. I'm going to ask Kelly to unmute first.
Okay, thank you. Kelly, I think you're on. As Kelly's getting ready, I'll just remind everyone for public comment, we ask comments be kept to 3 minutes or less. And any questions that are presented, we will make sure Dr. Davis is either able to address it or we'll have it as part of his Q&A that comes out during the week. Kelly, I just saw, did you do a chat? I just missed it, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Is there a different?
Kelly Carnes.
Yep, okay. Kelly Carnes, are you unmuted right now? Kelly, are you there? Okay, Derek, we'll come back to Kelly, see if we can get her. Who's the next person for public comment?
Tracy Hero. I'm going to ask her to unmute right now.
Okay. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, thank you. A few things. I do appreciate all of the board's questions and concerns. And, it's a difficult time for all of us as we go through. For those of you that, obviously I don't have my video on, but I'm Tracy Haroff and I'm the Marshall Teachers Association co-president. I want to just talk a little bit about a couple of the things that came up because I think I can shed some light on that. I know that Ms. Nicholson was asking a lot about how we've used some of those online options before, and she talked a lot about Spanish. We have used those at the high school level and possibly some of our Opportunity High School when things didn't fit into student schedule or there was a class that we did not offer that a student wanted to take. And so that is allowed according to the law. And so I think the difference in the virtual only being a full day is that is for the full day versus just 1 or 2 classes throughout the student's day. I did appreciate the comment by Ms. Gamble where she said that, school will not look the same. And I think that for all of our teachers, that this is what we're struggling with the most is how is it going to look? And just that it's almost like a grieving process, I think, because how we have been taught to teach isn't going to be the way that we will be able to teach. So that's hard for a lot of us. I also think that, when we went to our membership and we asked about if they wanted to do the virtual teaching, And basically, this is what they said, and this was shared with board members. I just want to share it out publicly. 82% of our members surveyed did want Marshall Public School teachers to do the virtual only teaching. 84% of those wanted us to find ways to make that happen. So that's really where we're at right now in this process is, you know, as Dr. Davis has said, we haven't really gotten into that in terms of our negotiations because we haven't been able to make a definitive plan. But as we do that, you know, we will definitely advocate for the best option for our students and our staff. I mean, that's you know, what we do. I do know that in that same survey, we asked the question, how comfortable are you feeling with providing both in-person and virtual? And that came back that most of our members were very uncomfortable. So again, while they feel like they would like us to provide that virtual option, we do have that uncomfortable, you know, feeling. I think that for the K-5 level, we feel that it would be great to have some designated teachers for that level. I think at the 6-12 level, with the options that we have going to the hybrid already, we're going to be providing a lot of online learning under that plan. And so for us at the 6-12 level, it might be a little bit easier stretch. I'm not going to say it's easy for everybody. It's not. Everyone has their own comfort level, but that's something that we'll have to work through.
Tracy, can I ask you to wrap up? I'm sorry.
Sure. I just want to say that I do appreciate, you know, Dr. Davis did have confidence in our teaching staff, you know, and that obviously we've been asked, you know, to come up with solutions on this, and we look forward to working together with administration on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I will pardon my dogs right now. It sounds like we have Kelly back for chat or for public comment. Kelly?
Hello, geez Louise, I was gonna say how wonderful it was that we all know our, you know, computer stuff, but then I couldn't unmute. Anyway, I just want to concur with Tracy, what she said. I think it would be wonderful if at the elementary schools, even if you had like a grade level person to do the online or the virtual, I think that would be truly beneficial because I don't know if it's that their comfort level isn't with doing virtual. I think the comfort level might come from them not being able to do both at once. I think that's where a struggle might lie. But also, I have my little notes here. Air in the elementary school, I just want to reiterate that. I know you guys have been hearing a lot about that, and I am a sweater. So I was in there last week and had my mask on and could barely breathe with how much I was sweating. So if there's anything you can do with that, because I know in the kindergarten rooms, the windows are really up high and there's no access to a window across the room. So there's no cross ventilation. So you open the windows, you can't stick a fan in there because the windows open inward. So it's just a bit of a pickle that those kindergarten rooms have. In regards to the Albion College students returning, I know that you have said, let's go ahead and take a look at the perspective of them coming back and increasing the possible outbreak number. And it would just be from that. But my worry is they're coming into the community and could possibly have contact with some of my kiddos and infect their families, because I knew we do have multi-generational families in Albion, and that worries me. And then with the kindergarten kids, I'm really struggling because I'm having to take all of this stuff out of my room, and I'm a huge hugger and I love to comfort these kids, and then having them come back to school or start school after 6 months of being at home with their parents. And if they start crying or get upset, I'm going to have to social distance because A, I have lupus and I'm very concerned about that. And B, my kiddos, I'm just going to have to keep at an arm's length. And I just wonder how realistic that is. And also, when our kids in the elementary school are trying to read with us, we have to be right down on their level. They're right there with us. And some of them read so quiet, you can barely hear them. So you have to really, you know, lean into them. That concerns me a little bit. And like I said, I'd just like to jump on with teaching Tracy and say about, you know, maybe having the teachers at each building help with the online. And again, I just want to thank you guys for being in your rooms on this fabulous evening that we're having outside and you missing the wonderful weather. So thanks for listening. I hope this helps with this big journey you're on. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Derek, any other public comment?
That'll be it.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to number 5, board member comments for which no action may be taken at this meeting. Any other comments from board members? I'm seeing no one unmute. I think we've all kind of talked at different times throughout the night. So if everybody is good, I will adjourn the meeting and we will see everybody next Monday. The last piece I'll say is any board members, if you have concerns or questions, again, continue to send them my way or to Dr. Davis's way so he can make sure he gets resolution to those and things are answered for you guys.
And as more data comes available and we can respond to some of these questions from the board, I'll send those out to the whole board for your reading pleasure, not for dialogue or for decisions. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. I will tell everybody have a great evening and we'll talk to you guys later. Thank you.
Thank you.